Welcome to the Soulful of It Podcast, where the cosmos meet the cards and the mundane becomes magical. I'm your guide, 𝗧𝗶𝗰𝗀, and in this episode, we'll explore the astrological transits and tarot for the first half of September 2025, with a part 2 episode coming mid-month. Or should I say mid-eclipse portal? Now, let's fill up your cup until you're soul full of it. Hello, soul friends and family. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode. September is here, and we're just a couple of weeks away from the official transition from summer into autumn here in the Northern Hemisphere. We're stepping further into Virgo season, and I don't know about you, but I've started deep cleaning and organizing, and damn, it feels good to lean into those Virgoan tasks as the cravings for pumpkin spice lattes start settling in. And also the pumpkin scones. Have you had the pumpkin scones? They're actually not dry. That's why they're so good. Anyways, looking back at August, there was a whole lot going on in the headlines, from pop culture to politics. We had, of course, the royal engagement of the Swift and the Mr. Swift, which I just have to say was super adorable to me, just for the fact that it looks like it took place in a backyard and not in some sort of big public arena. And considering that her entire life is a swarm of constant paparazzi and prying eyes, there's just something really sweet about them being able to keep a moment like that all to themselves for a couple of weeks before breaking the news on their own terms. I love that for them. In American politics, we've had a whole lot of other stuff going on as well. We've got protests against ICE popping up in major cities, and yet the mainstream media doesn't seem to be reporting on it. Interesting. But at least we did see some good news coming from the courts, because we had a federal judge ruling that Florida's inhumane alligator Alcatraz has to be shut down. And we also had another significant court ruling coming from a federal court around the tariffs, essentially saying, hey, this shit's illegal because, well, obviously it is. And all of us have been saying that, have we not? This whole time. And it's going to take a few weeks, of course, for those tariffs to be rolled back. And the effects of that are going to be interesting to watch play out, considering some of the other legislation that's gone on. But it's still a little bit refreshing, right, to hear that there's some good news coming in, some reverse Unos through the courts back to back. And yet we're still going to need some more supermen and some superwomen to help take down these Lex Luthors. Speaking of villains, on the world stage, Israel continues to dodge accountability as the UN has officially declared famine in Gaza. Meanwhile, Russia has launched the second biggest aerial attack on Ukraine just a couple weeks after the totally not suspicious behind closed doors meeting of the infamous American felon and the Russian dictator. So all of that is to say that expansion and contraction can be found in quite literally every corner of our universe as we are stepping into the month of September. And it's sure to be one to remember as we walk through the doorways of destiny that lead us into and out of the eclipse portal. And I'm excited to talk about the tarot and the transits with you as always. But before we jump into the cards and the cosmos, I have an exciting announcement. I am opening my books to offer virtual astrology readings for the very first time publicly all year. So these are, again, live virtual readings where I'll be taking a look at your natal chart and walking you through the wisdom that it holds. And if you're interested in having a reading with me, then you can book that directly through the link that I'll include in my show notes to my Linktree. And also that same link is available in my Instagram bio at Soulful of It, spelled just like the show. And to celebrate, I'm offering a special 9-themed deal in honor of both the year and the month of September, because of course, as you may already know, 2025, 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 5, add it all up, it's 9. So we're in a 9-year in numerology. And of course, September is the 9th month of the year. And I just love to play with numbers. So the first 9 people who book a reading with me will get it for $99, which is a pretty killer deal because it is actually more than 50% off of my full rate. And it's a price that I don't expect I'll ever offer again. So definitely take advantage of this if it's something that you're interested in. And you're going to need a discount code in order to claim the discount. The code for that is HERMIT, HERMIT, which of course is the 9th card of the major arcana. I know. I just had to. So that is the code HERMIT. I'll also put a note about that in the show notes. And this special rate will be available until the end of October or until all 9 slots have been filled. So do with that information what you will. And yes, you can also gift a reading, even if you go through and book one and choose a date and time. Just reach out to me and let me know, hey, this person needs to choose the date and time. And I'm happy to coordinate with you. That's no problem at all. And if you have any questions in general, the best way to reach out to me and actually get my attention, I'm sorry about Instagram, guys, that's where messages go to die, but through email, I will respond to you. My email address is soulfulofitpodcast@gmail.com. I will also include that in the show notes as well. So you do not need to remember any of this. You can come back to it whenever strikes your fancy. All right, now with all of that exciting news shared, let's turn to the cards and see what guidance they have in store for us as we step into this beautiful month of September. First up, for the wisdom or the rose at the center of the Soulful of Wisdom spread, we have the High Priestess. In the traditional Smith-Rider-Waite tarot deck imagery of the High Priestess, we see her sitting between 2 pillars, one black and one white, symbolizing balance, duality, and hidden mysteries. She wears a blue robe and a crown that looks like the moon phases as she holds a scroll marked Torah, which is partially hidden in her lap. Behind her is a veil decorated with pomegranates symbolizing fertility, as well as wisdom that lies within the hidden realms. The High Priestess is a call inward. She's the keeper of intuition, secrets, and deep truths that often can't be measured or explained away easily. We just spoke of her last month, so if you're having deja vu, you're not the only one, because she was in the part 2 episode of August, and she showed up in the attention or Thorns position. And this time around, she's reminding us that our greatest wisdom comes from trusting our inner voice. In Virgo season, this is a powerful invitation to balance facts with fiction and order with openness, especially considering that those eclipses are coming. Then, for the attention or Thorns, we pulled the 10 of Cups. A rainbow arcs across the sky filled with 10 golden cups. Below it, a joyful family stands together, parents with arms raised in gratitude and children dancing nearby. The scene is lush, pastoral, and abundant. The 10s in tarot speak to completion or an ending, and the 10 of Cups represents emotional fulfillment, harmony, and shared joy. In the position of Thorns, it challenges us to consider where we may be taking for granted all that we have accomplished, or delaying joy with a sort of "I'll be happy when" sentiment. Are we holding ourselves to unrealistic standards, reaching for the perfect home, the perfect family, the perfect partnership, just in general, the perfect life? This card wants us to pay attention to the here and now and stop saving our best outfits for a special or, quote, perfect occasion. Instead, let's allow ourselves to see the special occasion before us, remembering always that joy belongs to us. We do not have to earn it. We do not have to wait for it. We can step into the feeling of joy here, right now, and we can celebrate the abundance that we already have while we're still working towards growing even more abundant. Next, for the basis or root position, we have the first of 2 knights in this spread, which is the Knight of Pentacles. In the traditional Smith-Rider-Waite tarot deck imagery, the Knight of Pentacles sits upon a sturdy black horse, holding a single golden pentacle. Unlike the other knights, his horse does not appear to be in motion. Instead, it stands firm. Behind him stretches out an open field, ready to be cultivated. The Knight of Pentacles is not known for its speed. It tends to speak to slow progress and is generally a card of patience. As the root of the spread, He grounds us into consistency and care. We can get where we're going without speeding, so why not enjoy the scenery on the way? Change may be swirling all around us, but this night asks us to hold our footing and our focus as we continue tending to the small daily actions that build long-term stability. Virgo season echoes this lesson. Tending to the details can be an act of devotion, and it can support us in building a strong foundation for the harvest yet to come. Then for the guidance or sun position to close out this spread, we have another knight. The Knight of Cups rides forward on a white horse holding a golden chalice. Unlike the fiery Knight of Wands or the armored Knight of Swords, he moves gently and gracefully, as though the cup's contents are of sacred importance, and he is on a mission to ensure that they arrive to their destination fully intact. The landscape around him is calm, with a winding river and mountains out in the distance. The Knight of Cups is a dreamer, a romantic, and a seeker of beauty and harmony. We were visited by him recently in the Part 2 episode back in July, when he was actually in the same position of the guidance or sun, and he's returning to us now with the gentle reminder to continue to lead with heart. This card says to us that as much as Virgo season calls us to organize and refine, we must also make room for emotional connection, creative flow, and genuine soulful expression. He reminds us that what we pursue with love and integrity has the power to carry us forward, and it's with that heart-centered approach that we are able to quench the thirst of our own heart's desires. In eclipse season, anything can happen. So this is a bit of make-a-wish energy, combined with the wisdom that surrender can serve us greatly in times of uncertainty, such as these. The common thread I see between these four cards is a balance between emotional intuition, steady patience, and with two knights present, movement. This is an energy of making moves deliberately and diligently that are driven by inner guidance, which feels like potent medicine for all the transits we're going to be talking about next, starting with on Monday, the 1st, Saturn makes its way back into the sign of Pisces, which also, of course, happens to be Labor Day, which seems very fitting considering that the function of Saturn is to develop self-discipline, and that tends to require effort, commitment, and hard work, all ingredients of labor. Saturn's re-entry into Pisces is made more potent by the Pisces eclipse that we're going to be talking about later in this episode. But before we get to that, let's talk about what this transit could bring up for us to focus on or re-examine. And I say re-examine not only because Saturn has been in Pisces before and recently, but also because of the reason that we're seeing Saturn re-enter Pisces, which is that it's currently retrograde. So there's an internal element with the lessons that Saturn in Pisces wants to leave us with before moving on for good. So first, considering what Saturn represents, these themes around doing the often difficult yet necessary thing, what we want to do is view those Saturnian qualities through a Piscean lens. The first thought that reemerges for me personally with Pisces is the practice of spirituality and the tendencies of escapism. What this could look like is recommitting to sobriety, whether that's drinking, smoking, binge eating, any obsessive but destructive behavior or thought pattern that are essentially forms of escape from the present moment that you've struggled with. Saturn's return to Pisces is an invitation to cleanse your body, your mind, and most importantly with Pisces, your soul and your spirit. So whether you made progress to minimize or eliminate some sort of addictive crutch, these next few months are a great time to place a bow on that or re-engage with it. Even if you feel like you made no progress. Maybe you're a social drinker who started drinking at home and then drinking alone and it snowballed, and now you're hearing me say, quote, put a bow on it. And you're thinking, yeah, sure, if I had done anything at all to change it. But the point of me bringing this up isn't to initiate a shame spiral. It's to invite awakening. Yes, time is a non-renewable resource. And Saturn even rules time because hard work pays off over time. But I am here to remind you that you are not out of time. If you need a course correction, You can start today, right now, and that is good enough. Now, the other thing I mentioned that I do believe ties into this is around spirituality. Saturn finishing up its Piscean transit is an opportunity to become more consistent with spiritual practices and spiritual discipline. And when I say spiritual discipline, I'm not talking about the Catholics judging you for not kneeling or the Pentecostals judging you for not fasting. If either of those things are your thing, that's awesome for you. But I really think life and astrology is more of a personal fill-in-the-blank kind of experience. So when I say spiritual discipline, what comes up for you? I can tell you that for me, something that arises is this deep internal, which is very retrograde, knowing that when I spend my time and energy in the presence of people that feed off of my energy, it's spiritually harmful for me. I have a Pisces moon after all, so I tend to be very sensitive to the energies of those who are around me, whether I want to be or not. So for me, it's a practice of spiritual discipline to set and honor boundaries around who I spend my time with, in what context, and for how long. The older I've gotten, the more I've realized that part of the appeal to me when it comes to not drinking alcohol, especially in social settings where I tend to pick up a lot of other people's energy, is the control that I have as a sober person to make clear of my decisions when it's time for me to jet out of there. When I was younger, I was more willing to override those intuitive pings in favor of going with the flow and not being a party pooper. Now that I'm in my third decade in this round of the human experience, I'm flattered if someone thinks I'm a party pooper. It's funny how time shifts perception, and isn't that a Saturnian thought in and of itself? For those of you who have your natal Saturn placement in the sign of Pisces, this is your Saturn return finale. You've got about 6 months to integrate the lessons you've learned since March of 2023, when your Saturn return began. You can reflect back to that time to assess what progress has been made and what plot twists have unfolded. You can also look to what house your natal Saturn is in to get a more specific sense of what arena of your life has been challenged by a call to step further into your inner authority, maturity, and soul wisdom. The Saturn return is filled with growing pains, but if you course correct as and when needed, that growth can lead to long-term gains. Saturn rules time, so it's like the stock market. You don't see how much growth that compound interest is giving you until the years fly by. Saturn will remain in Pisces until February 13th, 2026, when it will re-enter Aries and stay there for the next 2.5 years. It won't return to Pisces again for another 30 years because, of course, Saturn has 30-year cycles. Well, technically 29.5, but generally speaking. So while this is significant for those who have their natal Saturn in Pisces, it's also significant for those who have their natal Saturn in Aries, who are getting a pause on the kickstart of their Saturn return. If that's you, then these next few months are a time of preparation if you choose to be wise about it. For example, if you have your natal Saturn in Aries in the second house, which would mean that you're a Pisces rising, then you may want to open a high-yield savings account or a Roth IRA because those are financial investments in your future, which is very aligned with Saturn in the second house of personal values and finances. For one more example, if you have your natal Saturn in Aries in the 7th house, which would mean that you're a Libra rising, then you may want to tend to some of those self-care practices that will empower you to show up with more confidence and authenticity if you're single and interested in dating, or if you are in a partnership, then you may want to invest more or detach more from that current partner, depending on your circumstances, needs, and desires, which are all very aligned with Saturn in Aries entering the 7th house. So whether you've got Saturn in Pisces, Saturn in Aries, which, quick cheat code here, if you're around the age of 30, you are one of those two things. Or if you have Saturn in a completely different sign and you're a totally different age right now, what would serve everyone as Saturn re-enters Pisces is to take a look at your own natal chart to identify where Pisces is, and before Saturn re-enters Aries again next year, you'll want to do the same thing and look for what house you have Aries in, which would be the very next house. This will help you know the where for the what. And with Saturn, the what is always a little bit of blood, sweat, or tears. But we can do the hard things, can't we? For our next transit, we have quick-moving Mercury, always following the sun, entering the sign of Virgo on Tuesday the 2nd. Mercury has dual rulership over the signs of Virgo and Gemini, which means that it is at home here in Virgo, and therefore it functions quite well. I know I said in the last episode that Virgo season aligning with the back-to-school season is very chef's kiss, Virgoan. The same is true about the timing of Mercury's transit through Virgo, as it really has us in the mood to learn and measure and calculate things, all very back to school. Mercury is very fast-paced, so we've only got a couple of weeks to maximize this energy. So here's some brain food for thought. If you don't have a budget, build one now, especially if you're a Leo rising, as Virgo would be in your second house of finances. If you're looking to make a purchase but aren't sure whether to go with option A or option B, this is a perfect transit for doing further research. Test drive both cars and suspend your decision until you feel you've thoroughly compared and contrasted and are sure of what best suits your needs. Generally speaking, Mercury and Virgo can also be so sharp it's cutting. And Mercury will also form a square to Uranus just as it enters Virgo on the 3rd, so that adds a little extra static to its entry into the sign. Virgo can be quite critical, so when Mercury is in Virgo, it's helpful to remember that criticism isn't a conduit for connection. We can look to the polarity point, aka the opposite sign, which is Pisces, to temper that critical energy with some Piscean medicine, which is compassion. You can end a relationship without lighting the bridge on fire. You can discipline a child without yelling at or shaming them. And you can deliver yourself a dose of tough love without using negative self-talk as the vehicle. Virgo is the perfectionist of the zodiac, and while it's admirable to aim for perfection, it's not often realistic as an expectation on yourself or on others. So let's aim for progress and work on improving the small details while remembering that there is always a bigger picture when we zoom back out. Speaking of the bigger picture, one of the stars of the show this year, Uranus, stations retrograde on Friday the 5th in Gemini. This annual retrograde will last until early February of 2026, and it will bring Uranus back into Taurus for one final transit, but that won't happen until November 7th. So with Uranus beginning its retrograde in Gemini first, there's an internal shift regarding the ways we're processing information and communicating. This is a powerful time to change up how we are speaking to ourselves to be more positive, and it's also a great time to reconsider where we're sourcing our information from. Uranus is a planet of innovation and disruption, so you may find that you're naturally looking to discover different podcasts, news shows, music, television, etc. You may even find yourself wanting to take a media diet and delete apps off your phone in favor of meditating more. Whatever it is that you don't usually do when it comes to how you consume, process, or share information, this Uranus retrograde is ripe for reinventing our thought patterns and reconsidering those who influence what we think and ultimately what we believe. Something that seems very clear to me as we're getting our feet wet with Uranus in Gemini, which again is really fresh, it only started back in July, is that the truth is becoming more convoluted than ever. It's getting harder and harder to tell what's real from what's not real. Now that we're living in a world of AI and deepfakes, critical thinking and curiosity are more valuable than ever before. So with this retrograde beginning in Gemini, it's a great time to weed the gardens of our minds, go through our emails and click unsubscribe, and look for new voices to listen to, and see if we learn something new from exposing ourselves to new sources. Then, just 2 days later, we have one of the biggest moments of the month on Sunday the 7th, when the total lunar eclipse is taking place at 15 degrees Pisces at 11:08 a.m. Pacific time. This lunar eclipse opens the eclipse portal, which will close with the solar eclipse taking place in 2 weeks on the day of the fall equinox. Lunar eclipses are essentially super-powered full moons, so where you're typically seeing an increase in emotional expression or even crime around a full moon, those frequent full moon feelings and happenings are made more intense by the eclipse energy. If you're here in the States like I am, then this eclipse will not be viewable, but if you're one of our international listeners in Australia, Asia, Africa, or parts of Europe, then you're in luck because totality will be visible from those locations. Something that I think bears repeating with every eclipse season is that eclipse events don't necessarily take place on the exact date of the eclipse, or even within the same month. Eclipse events can and often do play out over several weeks or months following the eclipse. This is going to be felt more directly by those who have mutable placements. So if you have planets in Pisces, Virgo, Sagittarius, or Gemini, I'm talking about you. And if it makes it feel better, I'm also talking about me, because I am made of mutable magic. This is a North Node lunar eclipse, which indicates that there's a power surge of celestial energy. It's very future-oriented with the North Node present, and can mean there's an excess of built-up energy that's ready to be released. A good way to work with this eclipse physically is to go do something like get a massage, go to a yoga class, see a chiropractor, practice breath work, just something with your body that will elicit a release. As a fire sun sign person myself, I find that connecting the physical with the celestial can be really helpful for moving through big cosmic shifts, and a lunar eclipse is just that, a big cosmic shift. So let's talk about the aspects in the chart. The traditional ruler of Pisces is Jupiter, so looking there first, we see that this lunar eclipse is trine Jupiter in Cancer. That's like a hand reaching down from the cosmos saying, here, let me help you let go of the big, heavy thing. Because of course, since a lunar eclipse is a full moon on steroids, the theme of letting go is made even bigger. Jupiter in Cancer offers support to release the big emotions that may be the reason why you've held on as long as you have to whatever it is that you need to let go of now. And again, since this is a North Node eclipse, what you let go of now is quite literally opening up the space for something else to come in. The future is calling, and to answer the call, you need to hang up the phone on whatever it is that is no longer, or perhaps never was, serving you. And service is the axis between Virgo and Pisces, as both signs are eager to serve in different ways. So asking yourself on or around this lunar eclipse, is this serving me? Is a very powerful and inquisitive question to sit with. Behind the scenes of this eclipse, we have Mars in Libra squaring Jupiter and opposing Chiron in Aries. The Mars-Jupiter square gives us a burst of energy and momentum to take action. And I see this as a supportive energy regarding the bigger picture release that we're making with the eclipse. I do think it might feel like a bit of a sacrifice. For example, if you were trying to stop smoking and start working out, that habit shift could feel really challenging, right? But also really rewarding. There is sacrifice involved in letting go of something that perhaps soothed you at a time in your life, maybe a long time, in order to embrace something else that will do a similar thing for you as an end result. Because it's actually very soothing, the accomplished feeling that we get after a good workout, but during it, we're not probably going to feel soothed at all. Mars in an opposition to Chiron, I think, just makes the wounding around the action that we're being invited to take more apparent. It can be emotional to try to release a vice or to change a behavior or to let go of a story that we've been telling ourselves for so long that we've begun to believe that it's true. So I think the question that's worth pondering with this Pisces lunar eclipse is this: what ending are you resisting or embracing, and what action do you need to take in order to allow yourself to truly let go? Your answer to this question is the key that opens the gateway into the eclipse portal. You can walk through willingly, or you can be pushed through by the hands of fate. The Uranian wisdom of the saying, choose change before change chooses you, feels especially helpful to keep in mind as we move through these eclipses. And it's all about that movement, right? We've got both of those knights that we pulled at the beginning of this podcast. We have that intuitive high priestess energy. We have that 10 of cups reminding us like, hey, yeah, things are coming to an end, but like we could celebrate that, right? It doesn't have to be doom and gloom to say goodbye. And if it feels like it's doom and gloom for you when you're saying goodbye, then maybe you should start saying aloha. Because of course, aloha means goodbye. And aloha also means hello. It's that concept of when one door closes, another door opens, right? But in a more eclipsey kind of way in this context. We wrap up this episode with the Sun Mercury Cazimi on Saturday the 13th. This is a day for downloads to come through, and in the sign of Virgo, in the middle of eclipse season, I'd say keep a notebook beside your bed in case you have some wild dreams or midnight thoughts that you want to write down before they disappear. It's also very Virgo to be writing something down. So leaning into that more, I think this is the best day of the month to work on any kind of writing. Whether that's a text message you need to send, a blog post you want to write, a novel or a poem you're working on, try just sitting down with pen and paper and see if anything comes through. And if you're not a big writer, just talking can be helpful as well. So like recording a voice memo or a video message, that can be another avenue for you to kind of get those wheels spinning and allow that inspiration to skyrocket. Also, because this is during the eclipse portal that we have this Cazimi, something that you could try out that's really cool if you haven't heard of it before is a concept called automatic writing, which is a form of channeling from your soul or from your higher self. It's an awkward thing to do for most at first, but it's an interesting thing to try. And there are a lot of different blogs about it online that I encourage you to go look for to get a sense of like how to do it. I think the first time I heard about it was a video that I saw on YouTube. I think it was by 𝗧𝗶𝗺𝗀. If it sounds like something that you might be interested in, I know I'm being kind of vague, go give it a Google search, see what comes through, give it a try, shoot me a message, let me know how it goes. I'm a big believer that we hold the answers to most of our questions, and it's in these quiet moments alone that I think we're really best able to hear them. September is a month of change. The High Priestess calls us to listen inward and trust our intuition. The 10 of Cups reminds us to open ourselves up to joy and to be proud of all we've already accomplished as we carry forward our intentions to continue to grow and prosper. The Knight of Pentacles grounds us in the steady rhythm of daily effort, while the Knight of Cups encourages us to move with heart and sincerity as we step into this eclipse season. Together, these cards show us that the path forward can be both practical and soulful, rooted in patient, small steps, guided by intuitive, inner knowing. Thank you as always for spending some time with me exploring the cards in the cosmos. Stay grounded, stay curious, and stay soulful of it. And I'll catch up with you mid-September.